The security guard looked just as confused as I felt, clipboard in one hand, a folded eviction notice in the other, and Karen behind him, puffed up like a smug parade balloon. "You're trespassing," she spat, eyes narrowing at me from behind oversized sunglasses. "I warned you weeks ago. This is your last chance to vacate peacefully before we file charges." My wife stood beside me on the porch, barefoot, arms crossed over her chest. Our youngest son peeked out from behind the screen door. The whole thing felt surreal. I had just finished mowing the lawn. Now I was apparently being told to get off my own property. I stepped down the porch steps slowly, deliberately, and locked eyes with the guard. "You really think I'm not supposed to be here?" He hesitated. "Sir, I'm just following instructions from the HOA. They claim this residence was acquired under false pretenses, that there's no legal record tying your name to the deed." "She's lying," I said flatly. "And you're being used." Karen flared up immediately. "That's slander. He never submitted the proper transfer paperwork to the HOA after the sale. He didn't file for visual compliance. That house violates at least 3 structural codes." "That's funny," I cut in, "because I designed this house." The silence that followed was almost comical. See, what Karen didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that I wasn't some random tenant who had snuck into a vacant property or a renter who missed a line on a contract. I was the architect. I had drawn the plans for this home with my own hands, pored over every detail, every line of code, every inch of setback and grading. And when my firm finished the project 5 years ago, I loved it so much I bought it. Cash. Under my own name. I walked past the guard and into the foyer. Moments later, I returned with a framed document, me deed, signed and recorded with the county, notarized, legal, and still warm from the last time I had to shove it in someone's face. I held it out, tapped the bolded section near the top where my name was printed in capital letters. "I think this clears things up." The guard leaned in to read it. His brow furrowed. He flipped to the back and scanned the seal. His posture shifted instantly, shoulders softening. This looks legit." Karen stormed forward. No, that doesn't mean anything. There are internal HOA procedures that override external filings if—" "You want to say that again?" I asked, my voice suddenly colder. "You're telling a licensed security officer that your little binder of HOA guidelines overrides county property law?" She hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough to know she'd gone too far. But Karen, as always, didn't stop. She turned to the guard. "You don't need to listen to him. He's a manipulator. I've had 3 complaints about his yard already. His grass is non-conforming. His backyard has an illegal deck. And I have permits for all of that," I snapped. "Would you like to see those too?" Karen's jaw clenched so tight I thought her teeth might snap. "This isn't over." "Actually," the guard said gently, stepping between us now, "it is." And then, like a moment plucked straight from a courtroom drama, he handed the eviction notice back to her. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you don't have legal standing to order an eviction on this property. This gentleman's name is clearly on the deed. I'm going to need you to step away." Karen's mouth fell open. "I'm the president of this HOA. And that doesn't make you a judge," he replied. The neighbors had started gathering by then. First 1 or 2, curious about the shouting. Then 5. Then more. By the time Karen spun around and realized she had an audience, it was too late. A woman down the street spoke first. "You tried to evict them?" A man beside her added, "Aren't they the ones who built the community playground with their own money?" Karen waved her hands. "You people don't understand. This is about order. Standards. He didn't submit a fence request form. He didn't ask permission." I turned toward the crowd. "She's right about one thing. I didn't ask for permission, because I didn't need to. I followed every code, every legal requirement. The only thing I've failed to do is bow to a woman who thinks authority means fear." Karen stepped forward, furious now, but the guard blocked her path. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." She was shaking, red-faced, breathing hard. "I'll have the board override you," she hissed. "You'll see. This isn't over." I smiled. "You're right. It's not. Because what she didn't know, what no one in the neighborhood knew yet, was that I wasn't just holding a deed that proved ownership. I also had something else. Documentation of every time Karen had harassed us. The fake citations. The anonymous letters. The passive-aggressive property inspections. All logged, dated, recorded. And now that she had tried to falsely evict me in front of a security officer and half the neighborhood, she'd handed me a gift. Karen stormed off that afternoon in a blaze of humiliation, stomping down the sidewalk like a dethroned monarch. Her eviction papers crumpled in one hand, her fake pearls bouncing furiously with every step. The security guard offered a quiet nod of apology before getting in his vehicle and driving off, leaving behind a cul-de-sac full of murmuring neighbors and a breeze thick with disbelief. But I wasn't done. Not after what she put my family through. Not after the sleepless nights my wife had endured, checking the windows every time a car passed slowly. Not after my son asked me, "Daddy, are we going to have to sleep in the car?" That night, I opened the folder I'd been keeping for months. It wasn't just documents, it was a dossier. Screenshots of emails. Photos of Karen trespassing on our property with a tape measure. Audio recordings from the 2 times she'd screamed at my wife in the driveway while pretending to inspect gutter flow. Handwritten notes slipped into our mailbox warning us about future consequences if we didn't remove our solar panels. The HOA had never approved them, she claimed. Never mind the fact that our city and state both mandated solar incentives for new homes. But the part that changed everything, the part that turned my frustration into fire? A voicemail. One she didn't know I'd kept. Karen's voice, sharp and confident. "You think owning the deed makes you special? You're not welcome here, and I'll make sure you understand that. I'll bury you in fines. Your wife will cry, and no one will help you. I am this neighborhood." That recording became Exhibit A. The next morning, I drove downtown to the city's Legal Services Center and filed a formal harassment complaint. But I didn't stop there. I also filed a petition with the HOA Oversight Committee, a state-run body created after years of abuse cases like mine. I submitted everything: the attempted eviction, the false accusations, the threats, the pattern of abuse. I even added a notarized statement from the security guard who'd been sent to deliver her fake eviction. He'd already contacted his firm and expressed concern over being used for a personal vendetta. He was more than happy to put it in writing. Word spread fast. By the end of the week, the Oversight Committee launched a formal investigation into the Willow Bridge Estates. HOA Karen called it a witch hunt in her neighborhood email blast. Claimed I was staging a coup. But her tone had changed. She no longer sounded untouchable. She sounded afraid. Then came the surprise twist I never saw coming. An elderly neighbor named Mr. Alvarez, quiet, kind, always watering his roses at sunrise, knocked on my door. He held a thick manila envelope in his hand. "I think you should see this," he said. Inside were copies of HOA financial reports from the last 2 years. Records Karen had mailed to residents annually, except these had discrepancies. The same landscaping expense listed twice. A security system installation on a clubhouse that hadn't existed in 3 years. And $6,300 paid to a company called KGP Solutions LLC. "That's her," Alvarez whispered. "Karen's initials. Fake company." I recognized the P.O. box. We met with 3 other neighbors that night, 2 of whom had accounting backgrounds. They went through the records with jaws clenched and eyes wide. What they found made me sick. Karen had been funneling HOA fees into her own shell company. Over $18,000 in fabricated maintenance jobs. Falsified legal consulting fees. Even a line item for neighborhood morale enhancements, which turned out to be catered lunches for herself and 2 close board members. We brought it straight to the city. A full forensic audit followed. Karen's world cracked wide open. They froze the HOA's bank account within 48 hours. 2 of her board members resigned publicly and offered statements to investigators. One confessed they'd been pressured into silence with threats of code violations on their own homes. The state filed charges. Karen was arrested in front of her own house, barefoot on the sidewalk, waving her arms like she still had authority. Her mugshot appeared in the local paper under the headline, HOA president charged with fraud, harassment, and misuse of public funds. She pleaded not guilty. The court didn't care. The trial was short, the evidence overwhelming. Witness after witness stood up and described her intimidation tactics, her obsession with control, her hatred of anyone who wouldn't submit. My testimony was the last. I stood in that courtroom and played the voicemail out loud. When it ended, the only sound was Karen's own heavy breathing. The judge stared down at her. "You abused power you never truly had," he said. "You turned a neighborhood into a kingdom and ruled with threats. That ends today." She was sentenced to community service, ordered to pay restitution to the HOA, and permanently banned from serving on any residential board within the state. The HOA was dissolved 3 months later, rebuilt under a new name with a new charter written by the residents themselves. No more fines for grass length. No more threats about mailboxes. Just neighbors helping neighbors. As for my family, we finally slept in peace. The lawn grew as green as it wanted. Our solar panels stayed right where they were. And our son? He stopped asking if we were allowed to live in our own home. One spring afternoon, I replaced the mailbox Karen had once obsessed over with a hand-carved wooden one. My daughter helped paint it. We added a little plaque at the base that read, "This land was almost taken by fear. It was saved by truth." So now I ask you, was I wrong to fight back with everything I hate, or was Karen finally given exactly what she deserved? You decide.